Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioner meeting for March 15, 2022. At this time, if you'll rise for the invocation. Our Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for another day, and Lord, thank you for the rain that we're blessed with. Lord, tonight I come to you with a heavy heart, and for the Miller family in Brantford as they lost their young son, at a young age in a terrible accident. Lord, and I pray that you would comfort and guide them in the days to come. Lord, let's look out after our country, our military, our law enforcement, first responders, and Lord, just bless them in any way you can and keep them safe. Lord, we pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving ahead, we'll have approval of minutes for the March 1st, 2022 regular board meeting. Do I have any discussion or do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I have a point to address, please, sir.
Mr. Prevett.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly, under item 18, as reflected, it says County Prevett discussed the settlement agreement with an eviction at the airport, noting that it should be back rent, not bank rent, was paid. So just correct your scrivener's error there.
With that correction, do I have any other discussion or a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Lamb, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Moving along to the consent agenda, items number 2 through 9. Is there anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda, or do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stapleton, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It's not quite 5:05 yet. We can do the additional agenda item if you want to. Now, Mr. Harris.
Yes, sir. That's fine. Requesting authorization to advertise bid for construction of taxiway A at the airport, and authorization to sign all of the related documents. That's being funded by FAA and FDOT.
Any discussion?
Call for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're going to skip to item number 13. We still got a few minutes before 5:05. And do item number 13, discuss with possible board action, Tilbury Solar Power Plant. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you've got a request from Duke Energy. When that solar facility was permitted, it was permitted under a different entity. Duke has taken it over. The county required a performance bond for the decommissioning of the project. Duke, in their letters, the summary version is communicating that they've got the ability and a plan in place that will enable them to decommission that when the time comes. They're requesting that we drop the requirement for the performance bond.
Does this mean if we do this one this way, we're going to have to do them all this way? Or?
No, sir.
I think that, my opinion is that they would have to demonstrate the same abilities that Duke is representing in their request. I don't know if Mr. Prevett would agree or disagree with that, but that's.
Yes, sir. It'd still be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Any other discussion on this, or? Oh, I'm sorry, Bud.
Bo Hancock, 6135 Wiggins Road. Duke, as part of in their letter, they say that because they've regulated by Florida State Utilities Commission. And my question is are the state requirements the same as what the county had or greater than the county's?
As far as the decommissioning you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes.
Mr. Chairman, from what little bit I've read and understand, I think it's probably more stringent than,
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay.
Jump up and down.
Because they are publicly regulated utility, that they have the requirements, the financial stability requirements that are to be met by the PSC, and they have to have all of those things in line, including these decommissioning costs as part of their annual report anyway. So whether or not we have it in place or not, it'll still be under state guidelines to be able to take care of that.
And, well, in 5 years, the decommissioning plan that was commissioned, that is in the information, who calls for that every 5 years? Do the company do it, or the county have to do it, or?
We typically do under the special permit, it would be renewable each year, well, each 5 years, with a new cost estimate that they would have to, come up with. Actually placing the bond is what we're trying to waive, not the other requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Motion by Commissioner Land, second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 10, time-specific items. We'll hold a public hearing at 5:05 or soon thereafter as a matter to be heard. Consider adoption of ordinance CPA 22-01, an application by Walter Lawson to amend the future use land plan map of the comprehensive plan by changing the land use classification from agricultural 1 to employment center. Mr. Meeks.
And at this time.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. At this time, if there's anybody here, including staff, that may give testimony with regard to this item, but I'd also, while we're addressing 10, 11, and 12, if you think that you may testify in any of those 3 items, would you stand to be sworn? All right. Then, Mr. Meeks, do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. Again,
I do too.
I saw you, Mr. Harris. But if anybody changes their mind, just remember that you have to be sworn before you can testify. And as you approach the podium, if you would please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the first application that you have for your consideration is a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment number CPA 22-01. It is a small-scale amendment to change the future land use of a 6-acre parcel property from agricultural 1 to employment center. The subject property adjoins the employment center on its western boundary. It is located at the intersection of US 90 and 161st Road. The application went before the Planning and Zoning Board the February meeting, and the advisory decision to the Board of Commissioners was for approval. Now, in the application, you have the submitted information, and I've included in there a copy of the future land use map that you see in there, which shows the subject property on the border of the employment center as it sits at US 90 and I-10 currently. The parent parcel of the property is larger than 6 acres, but the request is just reflective of the western 6 acres of that property, which adjoins the employment center land use category. You have a rezoning application that accompanies it on the next item before the board. But we've included a ordinance for approval of the board Because of the size of the amendment being 6 acres, it can be handled at a local level and doesn't require the transmittal to the state to go through the formal review process. If you have any questions of me, I'll answer them, but at this time I'll enter the file into the record.
All right, this time I'll take the file as it's complete in as composite exhibit number 1 for the record.
Is there any board questions of the staff? Mr. Meeks? Mr. Meeks? If none, we will open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this? Not, we will close public comment at this time. Is there any further discussion, or do we have a motion to adopt ordinance?
Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Hale,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 11, 505, or soon after the hold a public hearing to consider LDR 2201, an application by Water Lawson to amend the official zoning atlas of Suwannee County by changing the zoning designation from agricultural A1 to commercial highway interchange. Mr. Meeks.
This is a LDR amendment, Land Development Regulation Amendment 22-01. Goes right along with the previous application that the board had taken action on. First process is to change the future land use map. Second process would be to amend the zoning atlas. So the subject property is the same described property. It's a 6-acre parcel of property. Now that the land use has been amended, now the petition would be to change the zoning from agricultural 1 to commercial highway interchange, which it does adjoin that to the western boundary. Same described property as a 6-acre parcel, and you have a proposed ordinance in your packet for adoption. And at this time, I will enter this file into the record.
And once again, I'll take the file in as it is as composite exhibit number 1 for this item, LDR 22-01.
Is there any questions for Mr. Meeks at this time? Seeing none, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have any more discussion, or do we have a motion to adopt?
Chairman, motion to adopt.
Motion by Commissioner Flanagan, second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 12, 505, or soon after to hold a public hearing to consider adoption of resolution to consider a special permit request SP-22-03-01 by Tower Engineering Professionals, authorized agent for owners Randy and Missy Norris to be granted a special permit under section 14.11 of the Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for an essential service. Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, a lot of you familiar with this process. We've had cell towers come before this board in the past. This is another request. It's a special permit request. Number 22-03-01 is to, under section 14.11 of the Land Development Regulations, to construct an essential service telecommunication tower and associated equipment on property that is zoned agricultural 1. The proposed site would be a 250-foot self-support tower along with its associated equipment. The tower would be built for co-location, which will accommodate multiple carriers. I believe the original request was made by Verizon. They would be the primary host, and then other carriers could then submit their permits after the fact to co-locate their antenna and associated equipment on the tower site. The parent parcel is owned by Randy and Missy Norris. It's approximately a 79-acre parcel of property. I believe it's two properties that join each other. One's like 15 acres and some change, the other one's 64, which will total 79 acres. We have attached in the documentation shows the supporting documentation for the statement of need from the carrier, which shows their coverage areas as well as the areas where there may lack coverage and where the proposed tower could increase that coverage in those areas. And they've also included in there a superimposed image of what property looks like with the associated tower being superimposed on that image, so you show the location from like a street view kind of thing with that construction of that tower. We've included in your packet a resolution for approval, if the board so chooses to approve the request. Along with that resolution is the conditional language that the board has attached to other previous approvals, and that they would, the tower company would grant the county co-location for emergency services should the need ever arise. I think there's a minimum height on that of 90 feet, but it's included in the resolution package. The board so chooses to approve that. I don't have anything to add at this time. We'll enter the file to the record at this time.
Okay, I'll just make a note that the attachment that you're considering is actually not part of the regular zoning part, but it's a condition that we have traditionally added to it. So it's called a condition, you know, to be able to do that. With that said, I'll take the record, take the file into the record as composite exhibit 1.
Is there any questions of Mr. Meeks at this time?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Lane.
I don't really have any question. I just have a comment. I believe a representative from the cell phone tower is here. And he was here not long ago, and we told him, or we asked him to hurry up and bring us another tower, and I'll be darned if he didn't do it.
Well, I'll turn around and ask for another one after that.
I mean, cell phone service is vital to emergency responders. I mean, education, it goes on, and I appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
In that area, there's a need about it. There is.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, we got an application in the Bradford area.
Somebody get that guy raised.
Any other questions for Mr. Meeks this time? Not, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Is there any board discussion, or do we have a motion to adopt?
I'm on for a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Stapleton, second by Commissioner Fleming. Sorry. Commissioner Fleming, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, in my skipping around tonight, I went past commissioner items. Is there any commissioner items at this time?
Mr. Chairman, we can do it however we can do it towards the end, but I do want to get, I know y'all are in here, I want to get Mr. Jimmy Norris up here at some point. Let's change it to the end. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can we back up to discuss item number 14?
Yes.
Item which?
Before, are you moving right on to the
No, he's saying he skipped over.
I skipped over.
commissioner items? I thought you were
Yeah.
going to commissioner comments.
Not
I
yet.
apologize.
And then you're next, so. Is there anybody, any commissioner items at this time?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lynn.
The only thing, that I don't know if we need to just to act on it, but on the courthouse property, we got an email about it. I don't know where we're at or what we need to do, if we need to do anything, if we're still kind of doing some due diligence. Mr. Harris, I don't know.
The only information we have is what we emailed to all of you. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at it, please do so. If you've got any comments, give them back to us. We'll bring it back to the board. None of you've had a lot of time to take a look at that because we just got it. But it has 2 buildings involved. They'll split the property. I believe we had an opportunity to buy this a number of years ago, and I didn't comment on this last time, but we had just finished paying a significant amount of money for a small piece of property right behind the jail. I think where the retention pond is. And right after that, and that had been going on for years, many, many years. And it was finally settled at a significant expense. But having said that, we had a call at that time and an offer to see if the county was interested. At that time, the county didn't have an interest. I just share that as history. Whatever the board wants to do, we'll be glad to, do our part. But you now have the information that we have. If you want to do anything additional, as far as exploring that property as a possibility, just let us know what we can do to help.
We need to get an appraisal on it before we can do anything with it.
We would, if the board decided that you wanted to do anything with it, you would be required to get an appraisal on it. That's correct.
What's the board's flavor on this? I mean, do you want to go any further? You want to research it a while?
I would just say, I'm, like Mr. Harris said, I knew we just got it, and I did glance at it, but I haven't really looked at it, so.
I'm not in a rush. I mean, I don't really think that at the current ask price, I don't know that it's gonna go anywhere tomorrow.
No, I don't think so.
So we can discuss it at the next
We'll just
meeting.
bring it up at the next meeting.
That'd be fine.
Any other commissioner items? Seeing none, we'll move on to county attorney items.
I've already spoken enough tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Great. And we'll get back to general business. Item 14, discuss with possible board action 8.5 acres owned by the Fair Board. Mr. Harris.
This is another possibility for the board. Fair Board's had this piece of property for quite some time. It sits between the land that you purchased that fronts on Gold Kist and the property that the school board has behind it, the farm. And the question is, Fair Board apparently doesn't have a use for the property. They've been sitting on it for a long time. The question came, do we have an interest in having that property and combining it with what we own on Gold Kist? What I would ask is if the board has an interest, just authorize us to participate in maybe a meeting with the Fair Board and bring information back to you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would be interested in getting additional information on.
I would agree with it.
I second that, third that.
Yeah, myself.
Well, I think that's pretty much a consensus there.
I can read that one pretty well.
Anything else you need on that, Mr. Harris?
That's all I need for now.
Moving on to item number 16, public concerns and comments. Is there any tonight? Anybody wishing to speak? Moving on to administrators' comments and information. Mr. Harris.
Just briefly, I want you to know that we still have not received although we are confident it's coming, we do not have the agreement yet on that $5 million CDBG funding. I had shared with you before, we've got a very tight timeline that they communicated to us on building that structure. It was 2 years. Can't be done. Just isn't gonna be done in 2 years. I've already told them that. But I want you to know that we have done everything that we can do at this point. There are a number of things we cannot do until we have the fully executed agreement. State knows that, and I want you to be well informed of that in case anyone questions going forward. Once we have it, it'll come to you for execution, and then we can start the processes that are outlined in the agreement. That's all I have.
Before we move on to the board members, there's an informational item number 19, draft resolution establishing decal identification system for use of county solid waste collection sites.
That'll be coming back to you.
Yeah, so I'm just putting it out there. It's just an informational item. Is there any discussion on that? We'll move on to board members. Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring something to the board members and to the community. There was a couple of weeks ago, there was a AAU tournament held here in Suwannee County, and I was invited to come just to show my face, but I sat there for a while and watched them. There were people from Georgia and across the state, like Gainesville, Jacksonville, and I was impressed at the turnout. I thought it was going to be something small, rather small, but they had the kids and they had a lot of diverse. I was proud to see that people from all walks of life were there. And the mayor got there before I did, but upon arriving, I saw so many people, numerous tags, cars from out of Georgia, and people, and the Coliseum was full. It wasn't packed, but it was full. And then over at the Douglas Center, same thing, to capacity. I said that just to say this, that we have, and I met with those guys today, and we had a good conversation along with Parks and Rec Director, about some things, but I just wanted to bring out, we don't, sometimes we're not aware. Had I known it, then I wouldn't have disseminated information before tonight, and some of you guys could have came over. And also, I went over to the Douglas Center yesterday, and I was impressed on what it looked like. I don't go to Branford much, but I know sometimes we have to vote on some things, some situations that you need help, especially when it comes to kids. Anytime I see something about kids, which are our future, I like to support it. And that gymnasium was immaculate. It was clean. A lot of things have been done. I like compliment Mark, our maintenance guy, for the work that's been done, the painting. Everything is done out there. I mean, it was decent and in order. And I appreciate that. I told him I was going to mention that tonight. And if any of you guys have the opportunity to take a little time just to drive through and to look at it sometime. See our tax dollars that work. See our tax dollars that these kids are enjoying that. I'm quite sure that it will be some more things when I come back to the board for add or mention some things, but I just want to bring that out.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
And to your, you mentioned about the young man in Miller.
Yes, sir.
Lost his life. Their loss is not lost. Let them know that. I know some of the family. One of the gentlemen that I work with, my regular job I work with, he asked me last night. He came in and he told me what happened, and that's sad. There's so much stuff going. That's why we have to pray and trust in God that He will protect us. Outside of that, there are still things that happen. So let the family know that I have my say.
I appreciate that. Thank you. While you on the Douglas Center, there was talk about air conditioning that thing.
Yes, sir. I know it's going to be later on, some HVAC. I have to get with Mr. Harris and Mark apparently later on that start doing, working toward that direction.
Thank you. Commissioner Stapleton?
It's just a couple of things real quick. Just want to recognize a few people this evening. I see the Bennett's are here. They doing some work for the county. I'd like to welcome y'all. The Norrises was here previously with Verizon. I'd like to welcome them. There's some new faces here tonight that's coming and participating in county government, and I'm grateful to see each of you. And appreciate you being here and being interested in what we do and how the county operates. I'd like to say thanks to Greg Scott for his work with the airport and what he's got going on over there. Most everything he does over there is done with grants, and that's a lot of work time, as it is with our county office, to get those things and get them in place. And very little recognition goes with that. Usually a lot more complaining from all of us and the residents than the things, but just thank him for what he does. And as Commissioner Flynn said about the Miller family, we'll continue to think about them and thoughts and prayers. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Landy?
Oh, yeah, I'll just echo on the Miller family. I went down and visited with them earlier this week, and gosh, Jeremy and Melissa, as close as a family as you'll find as far as raising kids. They lost their oldest 20-year-old son. Just tragic, terrible thing. The Lord's going to comfort them and yet guide them through it. And I don't know why things happen, or don't have the answers, but I can assure you He does. And just continue to pray for them. Just really good people. Compliment Mr. Scott, like Commissioner Stapleton said. I mean, we don't, a lot of times, we don't hear it very often either on the compliment side, and I know our staff doesn't hear it, or the county staff doesn't hear it either, but, I just appreciate all of them as well.
Mr. Chairman, I did mean to speak about one thing too. We'd like to keep the Hurst family in our prayers. Miss Lavina Hurst, she lost her house to a house fire, and just heartbreaking, but she's fine, and that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So I just ask you to keep those folks in prayer.
Thank you. Mr. Lane?
Yes, sir, I'm good.
Commissioner?
Well, I'm gonna ask Mr. Norris to come up. As you can see by the Band-Aid on my face and the Band-Aid on his head, the meeting we went to last Friday, kind of represent the county. We fought pretty hard. We fought pretty hard, but while he's coming up here, I do want him to share some of the meeting with you, and I tell you, it's good to be part of that group that we are, because I'm telling you guys, and we mentioned as we are a small county, we have to fight for the grants and the things like Mr. Scott and all of us know too well, but, I'll let him talk about that a little more, but I do want to remind everybody, and I wish we'd thought to have Mr. Ron Cato here, but, we're coming close to the Hookville Heroes, and I wanted to mention that for any veterans. If you don't know about it, you can get hold of Ron Cato Hookville Heroes. It's April the 2nd at the Seahag Marina. If you're a veteran, they will take you out fishing. If you can't go fishing, just come out and be part of it. They just want you down there. So and I wish I would thought to have him here. But they always put on a good event, and unfortunately, I can't be part of it this year. I'm gonna be out of town. I'm gonna miss it, but we'll do the following. I expect all of you guys to jump in and help out too. But anyway, Mr. Norris.
Yes, sir. It was a battle. I don't know if, because we were in another county, we drove up in a Suwannee County vehicle or what, but we both came out of there pretty banged up, so we'll survive that. We're used to being abused.
What the other guy look like?
Oh, it was bad. It was bad.
Couldn't even recognize him.
There wasn't 37 of them though, so we thought we did pretty good. But yeah, we did have a good meeting. NFEDP is a great group that represents our rural counties, and we were down in Chiefland, and it's a good time to get together and talk with our peers and those that are in the know in the development world. Just a few little things, of course, we recapped Rural County Days, which we had already done with you guys previously here. Enterprise Florida was there. They're always represented. They got a lot of grant opportunities that are out there. My office personally has applied for and received 4 of those grants for this upcoming year from Enterprise Florida. So we're glad to meet with them, and let's see, what else we talked about? Broadband, of course, that's an issue everywhere you go. There was a nice presentation on broadband and some opportunities coming forth. And of course, you have funding and all the stuff coming down the pipe, and opportunities that are going to be there. And all of our rural counties, not just on that, but on infrastructure in general. We all know these things, but they made it pretty clear that if we don't jump out there and get our fair share of these dollars coming down the pipe, it's our own fault. It's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity right now with all the programs that are out there, and we need to be very aggressive in all fronts, not just one, but in all fronts. Dr. Jerry Parrish, who is, a lot of you may know him, he is he just left the job. He was the chief economist for the state of Florida for the Chamber Foundation. He just left and went back to work with Florida State University, which through NFEDP we have a relationship with. So now we have what was Florida's chief economist now as a resource directly to us, and he was at that meeting. And Dr. Jerry Parrish speaks all over the country. So he was there. He did a nice real presentation on the state of the economy in the state of Florida. I'm not going to read this 2-hour report, but there were a few things that were, kind of important. I want to let you guys know that on the job front, most of all the jobs have recovered to a before level, COVID pandemic level. Those jobs like business, financial, trade, construction, we're actually seeing those jobs are increased from where they were when COVID started. Where we're still lacking, manufacturing is still behind on a small percentage level. Get this, education and health care services are still not back up to the pre-COVID level as far as jobs, employment. And then worst of all, which this kind of affects our office as we were talking about, is leisure and hospitality. Here in the state of Florida, we're still, while we've recovered better than anybody else in the country, we're still 10% off of where we were pre-COVID. So that industry is still down. It's getting better, but it's still down. So Couple of other things I want to mention real quick. This is very interesting. I know there's employers out here, so Mr. Bennett over there, we've known him a long time. I'm sure it's easy to find employees these days. Dr. Parrish had this chart, and it's this really cool graph that he showed us. And you can see it's ascending upward, right? Well, he labeled this chart, it's called quits. And this is the amount of the workforce in the state of Florida of working age, basically between 18 and 60, that have just decided they're not going to work anymore. Quit. So in the state of Florida, 3.5% of the total population, which is 315,000 people that are eligible to be working, nothing hindering them from going to work. They decided they weren't going anymore. So when we talk about workforce, we've got 3.5% of the workforce that was there pre-COVID that decided to stay at home now.
I wonder if anybody's dove into that and asked them why.
You know,
He didn't have nothing, he didn't have an answer for that.
there were, most of them were retired law enforcement, that's what it was, or something. No, he
How they do it, Jimmy?
yeah.
He got paid bills.
Well, you know, they run for sheriff.
Okay.
I think he had lots of theories on why, but nothing he was willing to go on the record and say publicly. And of course, he is quoted all the time and on TV all the time, so, you know, he's being a little careful on how he phrased that comment. But it is very concerning when companies are looking to come, and we can't find employment. For Suwannee County, and this is showing the changes from December of 20 to 21, we were up 718 jobs, 4.1%. So we're at least pleased that we were up 718 jobs and not down 718 jobs, right? So I also wanted to mention real quick, we all know what's going on in the world, and one thing he really touched on was this thing going on in Ukraine, and it absolutely will affect us. His quote is that if you eat, use electricity, burn gas, or do anything else in life, you will be affected by what's going on. It's going to affect us all, we don't know. But with things lining up there, with inflation the way it is, it could get tough moving forward.
But he did say that on the heels of that Florida has done, exceptionally well, has not fallen maybe as far as some other states have, and also obviously the rebound, getting back to where we're getting back on track. It does affect our state, but in his words, it doesn't affect us quite as bad as maybe some other states do. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. A couple of other things. He gave us an example. We all know how much bread costs today, right, or a gallon of gas, but we were talking about this, obviously, Commissioner being in the parts industry, and was what he has seen the increase on shipping and stuff like this. So he's got a chart here. This is for the state of Florida. But what it's tracking is everything is shipped in those containers, on barges that are going back and forth all over the country. Well, on January 24th of 20, that shipping container, they have to buy those containers to ship their product. Okay, so that's their container. That container cost the company $1,549. As of January 14th of this year, that same container, nothing in it, no shipping fees, just the container, is $9,526.
But they're over 10,000 now.
Yeah, so you see what that percentage increase is from 1,500 to 9,500. So when we look around and wonder why everything's costing more, just the container is worth that much. So he was just trying to point out that, it's rampant and it's everywhere. Florida's still some of the best of the best, but, it's tough out there right now. So don't want to leave you all this bad news. But it was a good meeting. This is lots of good materials, and so hopefully things will get better. And, we also were able to kind of give some updates on some of our projects and things going on in the surrounding communities. And I'll leave you with this. Not that we can say a lot about it, but it does look like public buildings fixing to be filled up. So Whenever we can release that, we will.
Do, anybody?
I got one question. Jimmy, is that the meeting we went to where different counties host?
Yes.
What's the Suwannee County do that?
They do it on rotation, so, it would possibly be this year.
Yeah.
It possibly would be this year, there's
We
14.
talked about it a long time ago when COVID came and everything got shut down.
Right, yeah, and we can certainly request it, but I would think either maybe they meet quarterly, so maybe the third meeting of the year possibly. I think the last one here was out of the Spirit of the Suwannee, about 3 years ago. So, and there's 14 counties in there, so COVID kind of stopped it for a while. But we certainly can request to have one of you often could, once part of yours.
Just whatever we got to. It's all about Suwannee County.
No, we absolutely do want to bring them here, and, some of our new legislators as well, we want to probably invite to something like that as well, so.
And to your point, you do want to get them here because there's a lot of folks that are, you don't know who they are, but they're at those meetings and they're listening and they're seeing that they could be developers, they could be folks that own businesses, and they're looking in one of those 14 counties. And I mean, there was just a ton of folks there that more folks showed up than I thought, but it was.
Yeah, they put away.
The room was full.
Yeah, I mean, it was packed, it had to be 80 people plus it was good. I mean, it was good. I mean, all your power companies are there, you've been there, it's a good group. They do a lot of good things. There was a lot of art discussion too. GSG was there as well as, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thomas.
Yes, they were there. There was a lot of discussion about that and answering questions for the group on funding and, how those things can be done and ideas. So just good meeting and good stuff. Thank you guys for being a part of that and supporting that group.
A guy from Florida State University had all kinds of information.
I guarantee it.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. I want to just thank you for what you do, and I see how much time you put into it, and I've been with you a lot, so.
Tired of me calling yet?
Well, you can skip every other call.
Hey, I drove Commissioner Land in the one this afternoon, and then Commissioner Hill. I just go down the line. I try to drag you, so I don't kill all of you.
That's great. We do appreciate it. We do want to recognize what you do. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys letting me use my time for him.
Well, moving on, to me, I'm just going to echo everything on the Miller family. Wyatt Miller, he worked for me for a short time and known the family a long time, and it's just tragic. And I've got kids, and I hope I never lose one, and I can't imagine what that's even like, and just a sad day when that happens. But just want to ask everybody to be patient on the road grading. It's a little wet right now, and so I'm getting the phone calls every day, and I understand they're rough, but you can't grade a sopping wet road, so you gotta let them dry out a little bit before we can get to them. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Actually, it's not, call me or call any commissioner, I guess, if you got a problem, but we gonna get to it, I assure you. That being said, that's all I've got. I just need a motion to adjourn.
So second.
Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner, I'm sorry.
What is the 3-minute public speak?
We went through that already,
I'm
but
sorry, I didn't understand.
do you have something you
I
want to
do.
say? Well, let's hear it.
Sorry.
Just need your name and address for the record, please.
Amy Roselle, 28402 29th Loop in Cranford. Thank you for hearing, gentlemen. My name is Amy Roselle. I just wanted to talk about my concern about the continued destruction of the Ichthyo River. I'm sure you're all aware of it. 6 miles of the river, 4 that are protected by the state parks. The last 2 miles are privately owned. As part of the Florida State Parks and as a national landmark, the restrictions are placed on the river at the top of the river on the north side, where there's no motorboats, fishing, hunting, fireworks, alcohol, disposable items, foods, coolers, et cetera, et cetera. These restrictions are based on years of research regarding what's best for the waterways. In my opinion, based on personal observation, seeing the petition out that gained over 2,400 signatures, I believe that the most detrimental element leading to destruction of the river are the motorized vessels and the humans that operate them. If you haven't been out to that part of the river, I highly recommend you do so, especially on a weekend. It's a very dangerous, really unbelievable party site. So my solutions to this, one, I did some research on establishing a springs protection zone. I don't know if you were aware of that. That's already been in place. I just found that out last week talking to Captain Rachel Bryant with the Boat and Waterways Florida Fish and Wildlife. Pleasantly surprised that she said there's already something in place and she expects something to be happening in the next few weeks, or not few weeks. She said weeks rather than months to be happening. Also, I had emailed her about applying for the lower rivers to be a boating restricted area. You get the boats off the river from an environmental standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from all. I think it would save the generally out here. So I guess it's appropriate to ask, do you know of this happening, the springs protection zone on the lower two parts of the river now? We do? Okay. As the most influential group of people in the county, are you supportive of that? Is that something that you would support, knowing that, you know, any city or municipality can apply for this?
I was not aware of it, I mean,
So hopefully something will come out, and I don't know if they have your support, I don't know if they have the support of the Columbia County Commissioners.
and you've been talking to Fish and Game, that,
I talked to Captain Rachel Bryant with the Boat and Waterways Law Enforcement Division of FWC. I'm sorry I didn't talk with her, we had email conversation. This all came out about very quickly afterwards.
unaware of it, but I mean, that's my district down on that end of the county, and, I go up there quite a lot, and I've got a boat, and, when it's high, I do drive my boat up there, because you don't get to very often. It's usually too low, and you can't get up there by a boat most of the time.
Have you seen on the weekends especially? I mean,
I see it at the mouth, down at the mouth of the river, yes, ma'am, I've seen it.
are you
yes, ma'am.
concerned about the safety issue of that?
Well, not so much when they're parked inside the Ichthyo there at the mouth, but yeah, on the Santa Fe, yeah, it gets a little wild down there sometimes. You know, I won't disagree with you on that. But, I don't know. I'm kind of split on it. I like to go and look when I want to go and look, and I don't race up the Ichthyo, I just idle up, you know, when it's high enough to do that, and idle back down, and I try not to disturb anything when I go, and I know one bad apple will spoil the barrel, you know, but.
It's not one though, there was a cigarette boat out there.
Yeah, well, and I won't disagree with you there, but I mean, how do you regulate that? I don't know.
That's
We've had
fair.
discussions about it before, and it's always a speed discussion or a boat size discussion, and I've talked to FWC about it, and they're of the same opinion. How do you want me to enforce it? You know, you can put laws out there for days, but if there's no enforcement to it, it's never gonna make any difference, is where I'm coming from, you know.
Correct.
I'm not saying there's parts of what you're saying I agree with, there's parts of what you're saying I don't wanna do away with. I mean, it's, you know, it should be there for all of us, I agree, you know, but some of us like to go up there with a boat when it's high enough, and, you know, some of us, I realize people destroy things and litter and do what you're talking about. I've seen that too. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but when you get back to it, how do you regulate that? I mean, is somebody gonna go up there and sit and watch that and throw them out when they're doing it, or you just gonna ban it altogether from the river? I mean, at that point, you limit that to a very few people that can enjoy it, is what I'm saying. And there's, you know, there's people on both sides, Columbia County, Suwannee County, they're all taxpayers, and they like to go down there to the river too, you know, and they can go up on the north end and raft down just like everybody else, and I understand that too, but, you know, there's the lower part down there that there's houses on and people live there, and so parts of that I agree with you on, parts of it, I don't know, I'm just kind of split on it.
Okay. And it sounds like the Springs Protection Zone is kind of going through, I just wanted to know what, as a board, you all have thought.
I mean, I'm fine with it, you know, if they wanna, because it's ultimately gonna be up to FWC anyway, in the end.
True, it is, but I mean, as board members, of course, that would be, as influential as you guys are in each district, I think that would be.
But
Really, the protection zone just restricts the speed or operation of vessels, or prohibit anchoring, mooring, beaching, or grounding vessels to protect and prevent specified harm to the springs.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
don't the FWC have a board that they, to find out whether they regulate that? I think she was referring to this board, am I correct?
Well, she's saying we've got influence, we have influence with FWC, I'm assuming is what.
It is their ultimate, yes, approval or denial, yes. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that being said, just need a motion to dismiss.
You have, we have to say,
Okay, all in favor, aye?
aye.
All opposed, same sign. Dismiss.